CES is in full swing right now, so there is a ton of Steam Deck news, starting with the full release finally happening for SteamOS 3.0. I know it's 3.6 or 3.7 now, but it's SteamOS 3, okay? We're going to call it 3.0. They also teased a Steam console and quashed the latest rumors about the Steam Deck 2, which I know you guys love hearing about, the non-existence of the Steam Deck 2 as of right now. I don't need to do an intro anymore, but I will ask you very kindly to subscribe to the channel and set your notifications to all. It seems like there's a lot of new people in the world of Steam Deck, and I will deliver you all of the latest Steam Deck news if you just subscribe and set your notifications to all. All right, let's jump into the first topic here, which is about SteamOS. It's finally happening, guys. If you're not new here to the channel, which is the vast majority of you, I'm assuming you know that one of the things I've been begging for since the Steam Deck came out is the full release of SteamOS. I want to put it on every one of my PC devices and finally leave Windows in the past, and it looks like that's going to happen a lot sooner than a lot of people kind of thought because Valve has been so quiet about it. So what they actually announced, talking to The Verge at CES, is that the beta version of SteamOS is going to come out in March. So it's going to be kind of tuned to work with specific handhelds, like of course the Legion Go S when that launches in May. They didn't say the other handhelds, but they've been baking in support for the ROG Ally in beta updates for a few months now. So I'd assume that that's one of the first ones that's going to get beta support from Valve, which is nice. And then of course there's devices like the original Legion Go. I doubt they'll support the MSI Claw because that uses an Intel CPU and everything they've been doing seems to be built around AMD. There are other devices out there that it could support, but the coolest thing about this, which was hidden away in The Verge's interview and on the official blog post that Valve put up, is that this beta version, even though it's not going to officially support fully all these other devices, you'll be able to install it on pretty much anything you want. You'll be able to test it out, and Valve will be able to collect feedback from you and most likely also from the back end of you just using the device with Steam to improve the experience across any device that it's being used on, which is kind of like a really cool way of building it out, like collecting real world data from the devices that people are actually using it on in the most big group. I don't know how to say that. Like the devices that have the most users are going to get the most support because those are the ones that are going to provide the best data. I think that's a cool way of tackling it because, you know, Valve's not the biggest company in terms of actual manpower. So they don't have thousands of engineers that can build out this operating system for pretty much every device out there. They're going to build their way up. I hope though that while it probably won't be supported at launch, we don't have to wait too long to get NVIDIA support because, you know, most people out there with desktop or laptop PCs have NVIDIA graphics card equipped to it. So, you know, if you want to support the most people out there, you're going to need to bake in NVIDIA support quicker rather than later. This is obviously exciting because, you know, Valve is building out SteamOS and including it on other devices, and it is getting them one step closer to having it be ubiquitous across any device out there. And honestly, the timing could not be better for this. I'm going to talk about it as a main topic in my next video, which should come out either Friday or Saturday, but Microsoft is finally waking up and kicking into gear. They want to combine the Windows and Xbox OS together to take all this time that they spent building the Xbox OS and just basically do it the exact same way as Steam, where, you know, they can license it out to other manufacturers and say, hey, if you want to have an Xbox style game console or handheld machine, you can license our software and have it run the whole thing. That's something that was pointed out in my comments in the last video when I was talking about the Legion Go S and how they got it so cheap. Some people pointed out that the 16 gigabyte version is $499 for the Windows side of things, but other people pointed out that, you know, they don't have to pay a licensing fee for Windows, so they can actually make the MSRP cheaper because that adds on a cost to the MSRP of all the hardware that ships with Windows, which honestly is crazy. I understand that Windows is like ubiquitous. It's on all the business machines. It's kind of like the premier business sort of operating system that every business uses. So Microsoft wants to charge a licensing fee there. But if they're in the realm of trying to actually carve out a foothold for once in an industry instead of coming late to the party and trying to disrupt everyone who's already there, I feel like you dramatically reduce the cost or just eliminate that licensing fee entirely, right? Like if your whole goal is to get people on your system, like on your operating system, and then spend money on the Xbox store or spend money on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, get the MSRPs down on the actual hardware. And an easy way to do that would be to eliminate that licensing cost for Windows, or of course dramatically reduce it, because they're never going to give it away for free to these hardware manufacturers. I can't believe I'm saying this, but March is really just right around the corner. I know we're still in the beginning of January, but then there's only 1 month to go till March, which means we don't have to wait long for this full beta to release. But there's been a lot of people who are jumping on this space right now, acting like they know what they're talking about, and they don't. One thing that people don't really get is that Bazite is not an official release of SteamOS. It's like a fan community created project. And thankfully, in the interview with The Verge, Valve said they don't care. They're like, okay, you guys can do that. It's fine. We don't have any negative ill will towards Bazite. It's a great thing in the meantime until SteamOS releases, and we're not going to take it down suddenly when SteamOS releases for other devices. It's like a completely different thing that works very similarly to SteamOS, and you can pick and choose to install it however you want, which is fair because SteamOS is built on Linux anyway. So it would be weird if Valve kind of went out of their way to take down Bazite just because they want the monopoly over the whole gaming operating system, a world that they've created with SteamOS. So I think that's a cool way to approach it. I've also seen other people reporting is that Bazite and these rumors about Xbox and Windows merging for another operating system are what inspired Valve to open up SteamOS and put it on other devices. As someone who's been covering the Steam Deck since before it came out, I covered the initial launch of the thing, like the actual release info, when they put out the press release and the videos and everything like that. They have been upfront and clear that from the very beginning, SteamOS was not just meant for Valve hardware. They've wanted to make it a thing that can be installed on any piece of hardware out there. Like other manufacturers can come in and make their own devices and do whatever they want with SteamOS installed since the very beginning. That's not new info. So that's been the goal for years now. Bazite just came in the middle because Valve was taking so damn long to actually get this going. And I'm not criticizing them for that. They're building out a new operating system. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of different hardware configurations they have to account for on that side of things. They also have to get all the driver support ready with AMD. They also have to get all the driver support ready with Intel and Nvidia. There are tons of different brands out there that they have to figure out how to support and work with. It's understandable why it's taking so long, but Bazite came in to fill in the gaps, right? It makes sense if you really look at the actual timeline of things. So, there's a lot of people jumping in on the Steam Deck news world. But yeah, there's a lot of people jumping in on the Steam Deck news world that don't really understand the timeline because, they've been ignoring it up until it was popular, which seems to be right now based on the views in the whole Steam Deck space. It seems like a lot of people got Steam Decks for Christmas and are finally jumping into this world. I mentioned that in my No BS Steam Deck starter guide, which I posted 2 videos ago if you want to check it out. A lot of people in the comments were like, yeah, I finally took the plunge into the world of Steam Deck and I'm absolutely loving it. I love seeing this ecosystem grow. I talked about this a lot last year, but when you look at the hardware shakeout, the Steam Deck is doing really well for what it is. So if 3 million Steam Decks are out there, that's 3 million people who are accessing the Steam store to buy Steam games. They're going to make a lot of money on the back end. So it's just like an additive thing and not necessarily a hardware field where they need to sell hundreds of millions of units to actually make it worth it. The more Steam Decks that are out there, the more people spend money on Steam, which is the ultimate goal of all of this, right? The more people are on Steam Deck, the more people are on SteamOS, the more people are spending money on Steam. That is the funnel, the bottleneck that they need to get to make money, and it works for them. So I'm not criticizing it in any way. But that kind of brings me to the next segment of this topic, which is at the very end of the interview they did with The Verge, Valve was asked about the Steam console that they're apparently working on, and they were pretty smart about it. They didn't say anything about their Fremont, I think it's called, machine, which looks like it's going to be a TV box that's shipped with SteamOS and a new Steam controller. I'm honestly kind of surprised none of that stuff was announced at CES, so hopefully it comes out later this year, or at least info on it comes out later this year. But what they did say is once the beta version of SteamOS is released, if any hardware manufacturers want to start building TV style boxes or Steam machines like they did back in the day, Valve would be happy to work with them, and they should feel free to approach them with their ideas. And honestly, I feel like this is a no-brainer, right? Especially if the Lenovo Legion Go S situation works out, where they throw out a Windows SKU, they throw out a Steam SKU, and then they just keep making the one that does best. If the Steam version of it does the best, Lenovo's definitely going to come back to Valve and say, okay, let's do a Steam machine sort of line here at Lenovo where we have the Legion devices in the Steam family. We already have the Legion Go S, that's selling well. Now let's get a Legion box together that is a gaming PC that runs SteamOS right out of the box and gets updates like the Steam Deck and the Lenovo Legion Go S and everything else. And then we have a console in the marketplace while we wait for Valve's Fremont machine. I feel like that would just be a no-brainer move for any hardware manufacturer, because unlike with the last version of SteamOS, it's ready to go this time. They've spent the last couple of years building it out, but it launched in a much better state than the last version of SteamOS, and I'd argue it's in the best spot it's ever been. If Valve does release their version of a TV box this year, I'm assuming it'll be a lower spec box that's running the Steam Deck APU just at a higher TDP, right? Because they'll be able to draw more power if it's always plugged into the wall. Like, it has a completely different goal set than something like the Steam Deck. Still, with that being said, I'd imagine it won't ship with a dedicated GPU, and at that point, where I do like using Valve hardware, I'd be interested in like maybe taking it apart and putting a dedicated GPU inside whatever chassis it comes with, or just building my own. The possibilities of what can be done here are awesome and endless, right? Like, they've built such a good OS that like you don't need anything else, especially if you already have a big Steam library with tons of games like I do. Having a handheld and a TV box and my gaming laptop where all my saves transfer back and forth, I can play whatever games I already own or buy new games and just play whatever I want on their operating system. It just sounds like the future that I dreamed of when I was a kid. And most importantly, it feels new. It feels genuinely new and exciting and fresh. I wish the interviewer at The Verge kind of hammered them more on some of those leaks. Like, it's not really a leak in the sense that, you know, it's just what people heard through the grapevine. It's leaks from Valve files where they're finding 3D models of controllers, headsets, and gaming PCs. So like, it's real. The Steam Controller 2 is real. Like, Valve has modeled it, they've iterated on it, they've updated it in the background. I wish some interviewers would kind of ask them these questions, because, you know, they have access to them and people like me or Fan the Deck don't, which sucks, because I would definitely take my shot and ask those questions. I saw Destin Legary from IGN, someone I followed for a long time now, just started a new channel. He left IGN. He's doing interviews now. His first interview is with Phil Spencer. So hopefully he could kind of maybe get some of the guys from Valve like Lawrence or Pierre to come on his show, and he can ask these hard questions because he seems to have access to these people. I'm just throwing it out there in case you're watching, Destin. But yeah, it's all super exciting. And speaking of new hardware, let's talk about the Steam Deck 2 for a second. I think you guys are going to like this update, because if you've been watching the channel, this is not going to be a surprise to you in any way, like it's being circulated as. But the Z2 chips, they were all announced right before CES by AMD. There's big performance gains. They seem awesome. They're going to run things like the Legion Go 2 and the Legion Go S. That's excellent. I like that. That's fine. But a big rumor that was being spread around because of AMD's weird announcement is that the Z2 chips were going to be used in the Steam Deck. So a lot of websites started posting articles. I saw a lot of tweets about it, or X posts about it, where people were saying, oh, the Z2 Extreme is going to power the Steam Deck 2. Valve had to come out and say, and reaffirm, I guess, what they've already said, which is no, that is not the case. They will not be using the Z chips in the Steam Deck 2. As of right now, there is no Steam Deck 2, because the big line they've said over and over again is that they're not going to do a Steam Deck 2 until there's a big enough leap in performance to make it worth it without sacrificing battery life, which I'm fine with. The Steam Deck has a really long tail for how old comparatively it is to a lot of other PC hardware out there, but it's still working just fine. I am fully addicted to GTA's story mode. I just figured out you can transfer cars from the online version of it over to the story mode. So I do the online races on my PC, then I get the cars in the story mode. It's kind of like the best of both worlds. I've been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance. It seems like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is going to work on the Steam Deck, which is great. It's nice to see an optimized game coming out that was sent out over a month early to reviewers. You don't see that ever these days. There's so much stuff to play on the current Steam Deck that, while yeah, I would like to see a Steam Deck 2 at some point, I don't feel like I need it. I just got the OLED limited edition a year ago, and I'm not in a rush to spend $700 or more on a brand new device. I just spent $700 on a PS5 Pro. Anyway, guys, that wraps it up for this video. I just want to give a huge shout out to all the comments recently. I scan through them from time to time, and you know, there's some jerks in there for sure because it's YouTube, but the vast majority of you guys are extremely nice. I have a lot of channels. I have Deck Ready, I have PS Ready, I have Real Ones, and Real Ones, it has a very positive community, but it's a smaller community. As far as the gaming channels go, I think you guys are the most positive people in any comment section I've ever had. So I just appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying your Steam Decks, and I'm glad you're not requiring me to take a computer science class to figure out a lot of the nitty-gritty weird processor numbers and crap that all these other people know, because I like gaming on the Steam Deck, and that's the approach I'm trying to take. Someone who actually uses this thing and doesn't just care about raw performance. So I'm glad that's resonating with a lot of you. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.